and incurring harm on our fellow animal brother and sister. And as vegans especially, it is our responsibility. They own more than everybody else combined. All science is funded. So first up, why even make a video about material health science? Why even delve into this category when it seems to be already an engine that underlies all legitimacy and objectivity and guides us, and even provides a beacon of light as far as our directives of which we take to take care of our bodies. First off, we have to realize that material science, and especially health-related material science, does a lot of virtue signaling. It paints itself this objective beacon of light, of which we are all to reference as far as what we do for our bodies, what we put into our bodies, how we equilibrate certain imbalances, and so on. But what we have to understand is that science is appealing to these nobler motives of ours and painting itself this hero because it does not want to be questioned. It wants to remain up in the high chair of authority and have us following orders from it like lemmings. Science laments that it has already done all the work for us. It has ran the tests, tested all the hypotheses, aggregated all the collective pertinent data, and distilled it into a pretty little package for us to thoughtlessly just invest in and consider as a law. So I do think that pointing out the actual virtue signaling that science, material science, and especially material health science does is one of the important drivers of making this video. So the first reason is to simply point out what science really is instead of how it virtue signals to us. The second reason of making this video is so we can see things that are really in plain sight if we look, but having these science blinders on will forever eclipse our eyesight from seeing things that are really just in plain sight. Certain narratives and directives that should be annihilated and have no business being in our current system. So, first off, we can look at the definition of science. And I'll read this from what I found on the internet. A systematic discipline that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of testable hypotheses and predictions about the universe. Okay, that's the definition that I looked up on the internet. So right off the bat, we can see the virtue signaling that underlies how it postures. We can see the objectivity that it paints. We can see the law of which it seemingly emanates as something that is regarding it. I think at this point, it's important to make a stark division of two categorically different areas, and that is material health science and material formal science. So we can look at formal sciences that are material as well, like say geography, geology, human anatomy, mathematics, computer science, and things like that. And we can see them for more of an isness, a what is, a kind of standalone, there's really no questioning it type of theme. We know that 4 + 4 is 8, and we also know there is an organ inside of our human vessels on an intra-anatomical basis that pumps fluid throughout our body, and that fluid we call blood. You see, material health science takes up the high chair of authority and directs and tells you what to put into your body, what to use to equilibrate different intra-anatomical imbalances, and it uses its lab tests, it's if X then Y exercises, it's robust scientific studying to lament what you need to do and what you need to put in to your temple. And it does not like it when it's questioned. So the easy way to bifurcate these two categories is to ask yourself a question when being presented with said science. Is this science something that flirts with human health and asks me to put something into my body? Or is this science more of an isness and what is a kind of mathematical fact more so? This is how we can paint a clear bifurcation of the two categories, which are starkly different as far as their dynamics. Once science crosses this kind of isness, what is solely observational threshold, then kind of all bets are off. It can use its objective authority to monetize a vast, broad range of seemingly infinite opportunities that lie therein this health science space. As we see right now, there are a myriad of things that we are told to take. They could be vitamins, they could be supplements, they could be things that we're told that we need because we are low on. And underneath all of this is one thing and one thing only. And we're going to talk about what I call the primary to material health science next. All science is funded. I'm going to say that again. All science is funded. Funding is the material science primary. And this goes for carnivore biased science and plant-based biased science. Nobody is off the hook here. The primary to both is funding. A scientist may test for a certain factor in a lab, and the result of that test is sensitive to the funding. A scientist may test a precise hypothesis over and over and over again, but the decided theme of said hypothesis is sensitive to the funding. A scientist may discover a certain vitamin inside of a lab, and the end effect and ultimate utility of said vitamin is also sensitive to the funding. Are you reading the tea leaves of which I'm kind of pointing to? Funding, funding, funding. This is the current primary to all material science. Now, let's take a deeper look at funding and even the genesis of money to just a small degree. So let's look at the birth of money in our current capitalistic system. Right now, 98% of people are not vegan. We can copy and paste said notion and place it in the background of all monetary generation. It's pretty easy to do, right? So we can effectively say that all money is born from a non-ethical means. We can say it's born from this machine and this engine of savage capitalism, of which we currently all abide within. This current system that we're in is reflectively void of ethos and seeks to thrive based on scaling its exploitative measures through different hierarchy models. Little fun fact, if you watched my last video on capitalism, you would have learned that the word capital is derived from the Latin word capita, which was referred to head of sheep or head of cattle. Some more tea leaves there. So this notion underlies all monetary generation. This is one thing to keep in mind with the dynamic of funding. The next thing I want to explain is concentration of wealth and the current concentration of wealth that is currently at play. Right now, there are 1% of people of the 1% of the populace that own all the wealth. This is huge. And not only that, but wait for it, they own more than everybody else combined. And wait for it again, times 2. This is huge. So there is a very, very robust bellwether at play there that we can all look to as a pointer when considering certain things and deciding what we want to consider as guidance or a truth. This is a very big bellwether, this concentration of wealth. And from wealth comes control. There's a trifecta of scaling at work here, and it starts with money and wealth, and it goes to power, and the third one is control. People with the money have all the control. These roughly 8,000 or so individuals very definitively control all the wealth, and by virtue of that, they also control official narratives. And this, of course, should additionally be of note. I'll put down below here a list of 5 very popular official narratives just to give you an example of what an official narrative is. Number 1, you have to eat meat and dairy to be healthy. Number 2, you have to vaccinate. Number 3, you need vitamins and supplements for your health. Number 4, anthropogenic climate change is a real and to be very concerned about thing. That's climate change caused by human beings. Number 5, go to school, find a reputable institution, get a great degree, contribute to society, and you'll be rewarded proportionally with success. These are all just examples of official narratives which have been championed seemingly from decades, scores, eons ago. And official narratives obviously have a vested interest in keeping us following orders and directives. In order to do this, they have to keep us definitively and infinitely seemingly separate to one another. They have to keep us constantly looking outside of ourselves for our guidance. And this becomes very problematic when it comes to our sovereignty and our bodily autonomy and our health. The second that science wants to infiltrate our bodies, we have to be very dubious and very apprehensive. There's no room for not being scrutinous, not being granular as far as following the tea leaves and actually seeing the engines of which science thrives on and is shored up on. So you might be asking, well, who do I listen to? Who knows the truth? Who will tell me what to do? Well, the fact of the matter is, your body is supremely wise, supremely knowing. And the answer to your question is you listen to yourself. You listen to your own intuition. We all have this collective shared intuition, but we've been taught and conditioned not to see it and definitely not to use it. It's been masked from us. It's been hidden from us, not by any kind of circumstantial happenstance, but from direct intervention from separatist agenda-owning bad actors that want us to keep asking for guidance outside of ourselves. If we take a few steps up say, so to speak, a stairwell of truth, and we take a look over the terrain, we can take stock and realize that we have everything that we need within us. We can survive and thrive off everything that this beautiful earth gives us. We don't need man to intercept us and infiltrate us with his agenda-bearing dynamics. We can look inside of ourselves and know that the earth gives us everything that we need. This is our reference. This is our inner guidance system. And as vegans, especially, it is our responsibility to be championing truths, ever searching for truths. It is our responsibility. And if we're going to move forward as the vegan collective, sharing with our human brothers and sisters and effectively evolving consciousness and effectively changing the world as we move forward, we have to move past this health science narrative, which we're told to follow without question and abide by. This is very important. No more just looking at studies and reading studies and listening to people talk about meta-analysis of this group against this group, different hypotheses. This was lab tested and seen to have X and Y. No more of that. What's the primary? It's funding. No more will we put together this vast comprehensive study that's the biggest in 40 years that has shown that this group of people are more susceptible to X than this group of people. No. What's the primary? We have found that this certain vitamin has to be taken by vegans in order for them to survive. No. What is the primary? If we're not looking at the primary, then we're not seeing the tea leaves. And if we're just listening to others who still have their science blinders on, we're not going to move forward. Now, I will say, after all being said in this video, there are certain conveniences which are helpful that technology has afforded us throughout previous decades. And I will concede that there may be a very fractional group of people that may need scientific intervention and material science intervention to even sustain their lives. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about the 99.9% that can completely boycott health science and stop following orders from. These outlier circumstances happen, and they do happen, but they are the exception, they are not the rule. So in summary, veganism is a deep ethical purity that is adopted by people that are willing to have open minds and see above narratives. It seeks to exclude all harm that is practicable and possible. And when we follow science narratives, we are not excluding all harm that is practicable and possible. And in fact, we are, whether we know it or not, incurring harm on our fellow human brother and sister, and incurring harm on our fellow animal brother and sister via vivisection, which is one of the underlying themes that is ubiquitous with all science. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you start to question all material science. Once you do, you'll see that looking down from above, there are certain things that are just obvious and in plain sight. And once we educate ourselves on the history of certain things, we can clearly see the distortions and the agendas that are at play underneath.